The last topic I want to go over in this initial rewrite is debugging. This probably needs a bit bigger of a series, but I did want to show that getting to sort of first pass debugging for a bunch of this is not as complicated as it used to be, at least for some languages with good support for DAP. That is the Debug Adapter Protocol, which is very similar to LSP, except instead of about languages, it's about debugging. So what we do here is we've got a few different plugins that are very important that'll be shared for every setup for here. The first thing that we've got going on here is nvim-dap, of course. And then nvim-dap Go is what I use just for Go. It has some nice utilities like running a particular test and some other stuff, but we're actually not going to use that for this one today because I do want to show you that it's possible to just get DAP working sort of generally speaking without having to do a bunch of other crazy stuff. The two other ones that I really like here are nvim-dap UI and nvim-dap virtual text, and we'll show you exactly what those do shortly. So the first thing that we need to do is we just need to set up our plugins. After that, we can use nvim-dap virtual text to set up as well. You probably do not need this. Why do I have this? Well, I'm a streamer, and sometimes I use things that have keys, and I like it when I'm the only one who knows the key. So this is just a really long, convoluted way of me trying to make sure I really don't show you something that accidentally has a key inside of it. But you probably don't have to worry about this kind of thing because probably no one is adversarially watching your video trying to get your keys. So anyways, you can sort of ignore this part from your config, but it's very useful for mine. So what do we have here? Basically what we've got going on here is I'm going to say, hey, do I have the Elixir LS debugger installed already? If I do here, then there's two things we need to do to set up within nvim-dap. The first one is we have to say, I have a particular thing I want to run. Okay, that's what this adapter is. This is sort of the executable that is actually going to run that's going to step through and debug the program and communicate with the DAP protocol for Neovim. Then the second thing that you need to do is you need to say, okay, sure, here's the thing that's going to run, but I need to tell it what to do. And you can actually make multiple different tasks. In my case, the only thing that I was doing from Elixir was debugging my Phoenix server. And so what I have here is I just say, match up this type right here. So this should be this name here. I give it a name. I give it a task to do. I tell it how to do it. And then there's a few other options. You can sort of fiddle with these as needed, but probably something like these are just fine. And so then after that, this is all I need to be able to tell Neovim, here's what I want to do when I do debugging. But we sort of need to give a few key maps to make this actually useful. So for the first one is I have space B for breakpoint. That turns on or off a breakpoint. If we go ahead and open up something like our dashboard here, and we go back to looking at our theme songs, when I press space B, it puts this breakpoint here. That lets me know we've got a breakpoint going on there, and we've got a breakpoint going on here. We'll come back to what happens next momentarily. There's also GB, which is run to cursor, really helpful. But that one's maybe a little bit more niche for particular scenarios where you want to run to a particular line. I'll show you what this eval under cursor does, but basically it's a way to inspect the current value. And then I have, and believe it or not, I can't believe it, I'm using F keys inside Neovim. I have a layer that makes it pretty easy on my keyboard to press the F keys. And so I sort of order mine from biggest to smaller to smaller to smaller to backwards. So when I press F1, that's like run forever. F2 is like step into something. F3 is step over that thing, or F4 is all the way step back out. So that's sort of in my brain why I did those. And then you just have to tell nvim-dap how to open and close the UI. You don't need this necessarily, but I find this super helpful because this automatically opens the UI when we start debugging. And now we finally get to the debugging part of this, hopefully, you know? So what happens now? I'm going to press F1. That's my DAP continue. That's that's this line right here. So I'm going to press F1 and I'm going to execute sort of my current task. Now I actually only have one possible Elixir task, so nvim-dap will just run the one that is the only one available. If you had multiple, you may have to select between them or something like that. But once you're ready, you can press F1. And what happens is now it's actually started up the whole system for my Elixir thing. So what I do is I refresh this page now that this is actually running. We're going to get, I want to put this breakpoint here. And if I refresh, we're going to get, hey, look at this. We're right at this spot. We are right here. You can see what the current variables are. Now this usually looks a little bit better if you give it a little space to breathe. I don't like to go this zoomed out while I'm doing a video because I know some of you maybe are on smaller screens at the time. But if I was debugging, I'd be at something more like this. But we'll zoom back in so you can sort of see what's going on. And we can actually do things like inspect these values. If I want to look at, hey, what's going on in my socket right now? What things are assigned? Oh, I see that we've got a current Twitch user and I've got some fingerprints and a host URL and some ID. I can actually see a bunch of these different values. I can even see what the current user is, right? I can display all of those, which is really cool. So this whole sort of situation here, this is all from nvim-dap UI. That's what's giving this really nice view and all of these different options and windows that you can run stuff in. And you can even evaluate current stuff inside of here. So what I want to do next is let's just say we're doing some like step over. We step over these lines. Now you see, that's a little bit of virtual text there telling me what the value is. Now, I don't need to print 100 lines for all of these, but look how cool it is to be able to say, oh, here's what my balance currently is. Here's what my gross currently is. We can scroll back up and see what the ID is. These are all sort of getting filled in by nvim-dap. That's not actually part of the real text of that line, right? If I like yank and paste it, you'll see that that doesn't exist. So that part's really cool. We would say, okay, but sure, TJ, how then though can we see what sort of this big value is here? Great question. Well, the way that we can do that is that space equals that I mentioned, which is the eval. So if I do space question mark here, oh, that one's not done yet, so that makes sense. We can go space question mark here on the actual theme song. I can expand this and I can look at all of the values, right? So we don't have miles of configuration. I want you to remember this. This is all the config that I have set up for nvim-dap, which is I install the plugins, I do setup, I just tell it where to find and how to run my debugger, and then I set a few key maps and we're off to the races. We're able to actually sort of see all of the different values and all of the different ideas here inside of the debugging live, and we can keep on walking through and keep on stepping over, right? And keep on, okay, we got to mount and now we're in render and I can see, oh, how are we rendering it? What's inside of here? We can go to assigns and see what things are currently set for this particular run of rendering. So if we're wondering, why is it that we're getting, no theme song? We could check and see, oh, there's no theme song set currently for the assigns. In this case, we do have one, but we can verify that we actually do have a theme song by checking this value right here. And then if we let it sort of just play out by pressing continue, we'll see that I think at some point, we probably got a timeout because that took forever because we were just talking for so long. I can run through these and then we'll actually load our page, right? So that's actually what's running right now. I'm able to debug, check all the values, set breakpoints anywhere in the program and connect all within Neovim. And then, yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. It's awesome. It's really cool and it's really useful for the times where maybe, a quick printf or a test can't solve it as quickly as actually just hopping in your debugger, figuring out what's going on, evaluating stuff in the current process, and then fixing your bugs and moving on. So you have a little bit more time to configure your Neovim. Thanks, everybody. Smash the like, leave a comment, etc. Thanks. I hope you have a great week, and I hope you enjoyed this little mini series on rewriting my Neovim config. Bye.